A friend of mine recently asked me an intriguing question. What sort of picture of yourself would and wouldn't you upload on a social media platform like Instagram? The answers to this question vary wildly from person to person. Your choice of photo might depend on a few factors, such as your followers, how secure you feel about the way you look, and the quality of the photo. Most people would probably pick the photo in which they think they look best and stay away from the pictures which might cause some backlash or negative judgment. So it can be said that the content on platforms like Instagram is not 100% true to life. In other words, social media platforms like these can trick you and your view of reality. Social media have had a profound effect on the way we live. Most people have been using these services every day of their lives now for a few years, including myself, and probably you as well. The platforms have given way to a new dimension of communication. People can easily speak and share things with each other online. They can keep up with what their friends are up to, and a lot of people gather their news on social media, for better or for worse. But social media itself came into being as a result of advances in technology. Of course, I'm talking about the emergence of smartphones, with the iPhone 1 being at the forefront of this revolution. But are smartphones and social media really that revolutionary? Surely, other media like TV and radio had influence on people's lives as well. This raises a question. Is social media comparable to the earlier media innovations, or is it really in a league of its own in terms of everyday influence? Let's go back in time to make a proper comparison. Before the invention of the written language, people used to share things with each other by word of mouth. Stories, discussions and conversations were the primary methods of communication. Of course, we also know of cave and rock paintings from prehistoric times. Written language came into being when the nomadic hunter-gatherers became farmers and townspeople. One of the oldest forms of written language that we know of is called cuneiform. This language was discovered on clay tablets in Mesopotamia, which date back to around 3000 BC. Another innovation was that of the ancient Egyptians, who invented a primitive form of paper using the papyrus plant. This could be used in combination with inks to write and draw things. Up until the Middle Ages, mostly religious or royal people were literate. This all changed with the invention of the printed texts in Asia and Europe. A famous example of someone using this technology is Martin Luther, who used printing press to make pamphlets, which criticized the Catholic Church. This printing method, pioneered by Johannes Gutenberg, revolutionized the spread of information. Luther's pamphlets spread all over Europe, eventually causing the split between the Protestant and Catholic faiths. The amount of literate people was also expanding due to this new media, and it weren't just religious texts that were popular. In the 1500s, books written about a range of subjects could be found in households all over Europe. Books weren't just used for studying, but they could also be entertaining or utilitarian in nature. In 1774, the then 24-year-old German writer Johann Wolfgang von Goethe wrote the book The Sorrows of Young Werther. The book contains the letters of a young man named Werther, who is writing to his best friend Wilhelm. Werther falls in love with the beautiful Charlotte, who is engaged to another man named Albert. Werther becomes friends with both of them, even though it pains him to see the love of his life with another man. But the pain becomes too great after a while for Werther, and he sees only one way out. At the end of the book, he commits suicide with pistols he borrowed from Albert. The Sorrows of Young Werther gained immense popularity all over Europe. Goethe immediately became one of the most celebrated writers of the time, and the book had a sinister effect on some of its readers. It was one of the first known examples of a phenomenon called copycat suicide, in which young men would take their own lives while dressed as Werther, using pistols similar to that of Albert and with a copy of the book by their side. This caused the clothing styles of Werther to be banned in the city of Leipzig, and the book itself was also banned in Denmark and Italy. It is fair to say that this piece of media had an astounding effect on not only laws and regulations, but people as well. The effects of media would become more and more apparent with each new development in the field. Some speculated that the advent of radio and film at the start of the 1900s meant the end of books and written media as a whole. Of course, this didn't end up being the case, and this all had to do with the way people interacted with each new form of media. You would most often go to the cinema to be entertained, and books kept being the primary medium for studying, and that's true even to this day. Instead of acquiring information through visual means, people could now also use their ears to get similar information. This difference in interaction between these sorts of media also causes a difference in the way content for this medium is created, and the choice of medium you use could be seen as more important than the content you consume in and of itself. I've basically told you some of Marshall McLuhan's theories surrounding this famous quote, "The medium is the message," though I prefer this quote of his.
You know, I'm going to have to sneak off and have a pee.
When studying messages in media, it is also important to realize the medium in which these messages are spread. McLuhan theorized that the spread of media like radio and television all over the world made people more aware of their cultures. He foresaw the rise of something he dubbed a global village. He basically predicted the rise of the internet. Like the agrarian and industrial revolutions before it, the digital revolution has had an immense consequence on the way we live. The invention of the internet, often credited to Tim Berners-Lee, primarily gave rise to new ways of communication. People from all over the world could communicate with ease using email, making McLuhan's global village theory somewhat real. Innovations in the field were made very rapidly. In the 90s, the internet was still quite limited. To even use it, you needed to have a modem call onto the network, which of course made this wonderful sound. Luckily, using the internet became less of a hassle in the early 2000s. Eventually, the World Wide Web collided with another rapidly developing technology, portable phones. The launch of the first iPhone in 2007 perfected the form factor of modern phones, with the addition of a user-friendly touchscreen interface. Sites such as Facebook made apps so that the services also worked on this new market. New apps such as Instagram were also created with smartphones in mind. Apps became very profitable because people could access them all the time, and this also meant that people would be exposed to advertisements on these apps all the time. As I explained earlier, the content on apps like Instagram, TikTok and Snapchat are curated by the users themselves to a certain degree. Most people want to show the best versions of themselves. They want to make the fun moments they have look like the most amazing times of their lives. The viewers of this content might fear that they are missing out, or feel insecure about themselves. You might think to yourself, why don't the people that get heavily affected by this just quit using social media? This is often easier said than done. All prominent apps are designed in a way that makes you constantly want to keep using them. The more time you spend on the app, the more money in the form of advertising is made. And to maximize this time spent, the platforms need to keep you hooked. That's why the biggest apps use the same psychological manipulation as gambling machines. After all, both are designed to keep someone hooked for as long as possible in order to make money. In short, it's quite easy to get addicted to some apps. And then there's the fact that some people can't or don't want to delete the apps. Especially teens and preteens feel a great urge to belong within a group. They might get bullied or ostracized for not being active on certain social media platforms. Furthermore, kids in this age group often want to present themselves as good, interesting or fun as possible in order to fit in. This topic is explored in the Netflix documentary The Social Dilemma, which I highly encourage everyone to go and watch. One of the most striking parts of the documentary was a scene in which a little girl deletes a picture from an Instagram-like app because it didn't get enough likes. The judgment of others outweighed her own opinion of the photo, and because not enough people liked the photo, the girl also thinks that people don't like her as a person. Despite this being an acted scene, I don't think it's far-fetched at all. Social media can change the views and perceptions of other generations as well. I probably don't have to tell you about the political polarization that is increasing in a lot of countries. The coronavirus and consequent regulations showed us how quickly misinformation, conspiracies and misconceptions could spread. The rise of radical viewpoints in so-called echo chambers on social media platforms have had real-life effects. The addictive nature of social media and the feeling of validation that people get from these groups keep people hooked. This can sometimes lead to conflict within families or hate and violence towards strangers. Extremism on all sides of the political spectrum is on the rise, and places like Facebook groups, 4chan and Reddit are fertile ground for these viewpoints to manifest themselves. The problems social media can cause are becoming more and more apparent each day. The situation may seem hopeless, but people are starting to do something against this toxic internet landscape. The voices calling for change are becoming louder and louder, and a more positive internet is already in the making. I mentioned the documentary The Social Dilemma already. One of its creators, Tristan Harris, was one of the driving figures behind the film. Harris worked at Google for 5 years, but he became more and more worried about the effects of his work. He left the company in 2014 and started a movement called Humane that seeks to make the current internet a more ethical place. You can find research, articles and podcasts on Humane website, and I highly encourage anyone to check it out. Furthermore, there are plenty of YouTube videos, essays and documentaries tackling this subject matter. People are starting to see the effects that social media can have on our society, and the discussion is growing larger every day. So beware of the effects of social media and take care of yourself. Thank you very much for watching.